Hi Piccolos, this is the third movement to Mahler 9, Piccolo part, practice guide. So just a few spots. On the first page, it's not too bad. There is a little solo here that I'll just play it once and just say a very few things about that, and then we'll get to the hard part on the second page. Okay, so I mean, it's not very hard, but it is easy to get in the second beat with the D, E, D, E combination to get a little tangled because you're really trying to project through heavy orchestration. And so I just have to remind myself to keep my right hand pinky up, not to go back to the real E. I mean, unless that doesn't mess you up to do that, but it did for me. Rather than, going back and forth. I mean, I am doing the first finger up and down, these, but just keeping the pinky up. That helped me a little bit. And also thinking very short, especially on the last D and E. I had to really focus on it that way to not be a little stumbly. If I exaggerate it. Anyway, that's what I thought of. Okay, now to the fun stuff. Second page. The first two lines, this isn't too bad. I'll just play it down. Yeah, just very short. The trill's one trill. Okay, now this part here, it is with the full orchestra. I think all the winds are playing the same figure, so it's not super crucial that you're getting it all, although it is nice to be able to play all the notes. I'm gonna play it down once, and then I'll go over how I went about practicing it, things I thought of to make all the notes come out every single time we played it in a rehearsal, and then of course the concert. How I started practicing this was just the metronome down at 70 or something. And this is the half note going at 70. So bum, A, ticka-ta, ticka-ta-ka-ta-ka-ta-ka-ta, all the way through. And I worked my way up. What I found that was difficult was as it gets faster, the 16ths, ta, ticka-ta, ticka-ta, you almost have to just toss them off. Just not get stuck because you'll get behind right away. So instead of, you did, I don't know, just very, very fast and just on the top of the tone, sort of, and just going forward. Otherwise, it gets behind. But what I was going to say is when I was practicing this, I had to really practice to land on a K on this F sharp. For whatever reason, that was giving me so many problems. So going slow, like landing on K right there for double tonguing, or G, however you think of your double tonguing. It's just going too fast to do single tonguing. Yeah, you won't be able to do it single tonguing. I had to just practice stopping on the K on the F sharp. Dun ta, ticka da, ka, and kind of really get used to that. Okay, and then on the E half note, I would get off of that slightly early so I can get a good breath, but not doing anything no big opening of the mouth, taking a huge breath of air. You don't really have time for that, and you don't want to disturb the embouchure as much as possible going through the next 4 measures because it's so extremely high, and any little disturbance will make the notes not come out. From the triplet, I did E middle F sharp. For me, it's just cleaner going to the G sharp, and it comes out a little easier. And then you have the little trill mordant. You're not gonna be able to go to a real B natural. In fact, I can't even think of the fingering to the real B A to B natural trill off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. But you just do your fingering A, and you just do first and second trill key to make a squeak higher. And then we have to get to the ABC. That's the highlight of it. I'm gonna play these, 2, 3 measures slow once. Oh yeah, so I was going slow, of course, but that G sharp on the A, G sharp A, there's not enough time really, or I decided not to do the alternate. So that high G sharp, it's really finicky if it's gonna come out. What I had to do is make sure my bottom lip goes out a tiny bit more to sort of support the air, keep the air fast. But honestly, if you don't get that G sharp, there's so much chaos going on, it's okay. And then we do the bump, bump, and then try not, keep your embouchure very still. No breathing, unless you really need to, but if your air is very, very centered, you should be able to go through without a breath. But ideally, you want to not disturb the embouchure between between those two figures. And then here, the ABC, yeah, a couple things. So I make sure my pinky is down for the A. So it should have been for the ba-da-dum, bum, pinky is down for the A. And then ABC, it's down to start. ABC, and then it's off. The high C, really use my air very, very efficiently for the ABC. So my air is going fast, but then as I go up to the C, it's more just like pressing down a little bit. And I'm not like grabbing hold of it and clamping. You don't want to do that. And you certainly don't want to roll in and force the high C. That won't work either. But as I'm going up, I'm just trying not to like blow more, basically. You don't want to just, because then, first of all, it's unlikely the C will come out. And second of all, you won't be able to continue onto the phrase. You will die out after the high C. And then you'll be a big spitty mess and stuff. Very efficient with the air. And you can practice slow, A, B, C. So yeah, the air is ice cold fast. Also, the fingers are very close to the keys. A, B, C, A, B, C, like that. If your fingers are moving high, it takes longer, of course, to get down to the keys. But also on Piccolo, what makes that extra problematic is that it physically moves your instrument. So you need to keep your fingers very close to the keys, very light touch. I found even if I got the ABC, coming down for some reason was causing me problems on when I first started working on this before first rehearsal. And I just played this with Mahler Symphony last week. And what I was doing, I believe, is I would go up ABC and, use my full speed of air, with that's kind of like pressed or compressed a little bit, or I should say, which has a lot of resistance. I don't want to give the impression that I'm just like pressing down on the note. I just felt like I have a lot of resistance on that C and not a whole lot of air quantity. Anyway, I would push the limits of like let's say your air speed is like an elastic, like a rubber band. So I would push the ABC and then coming down B, A, G, I would keep my air like out here, so to speak. So I needed to bring my air speed like down a notch to do B, A, G, F, whatever, E, coming down. Because I was like, why can I get high C and then the notes after it are not speaking? And so I had to actually write EMB, which means embouchure, which means remember, like, come back into place. And I actually wrote diminuendo, which of course I didn't diminuendo, but it just tells my mind like, chill out, come back to embouchure, not really embouchure, even though that's what I wrote. It was more like to recalibrate my airspeed to normal high register, not just a screaming high C. Of course, this is going so fast. You just have to practice that with those concepts very slowly. And like I said, I'll just come back to that main point. You don't want to like blow out your high C. You don't want to let's see if I can do it. Just like really force out that high C. What I did was, my embouchure, I blew out my embouchure is how I always say it. So you don't want to blow out your embouchure. Your embouchure has to keep hold of the air, the very fast air stream. So if you're going, like that, you're never going to get it back. Or your air is like starting to widen and it's out of control. So you want to keep like that. And trying to keep it light coming down, because like I said, I go, I loved screaming way up high on the high C. That was fun. But then very light and short and moving forward, so that I can complete the phrase. A few ways that I practiced this line. And by the way, always wear earplugs. I have earplugs in both ears. Also, that reminds me, if you're really struggling with just the fingerings, like ABC, or whatever, practice that on your flute. Get it comfortable in your fingers on your flute, and then come to the piccolo. You don't want to be dealing with on the piccolo in the extreme high register, because you don't want to be dealing with just fingering issues, because we have so many other issues to deal with, like notes coming out at all and stuff like that. Anyway, a few ways I practiced this. One way is kind of doing it sort of up to tempo, although you could do it slower, but just one measure at a time or one little phrase thing at a time, and just make sure that was solid, because this is hard to do straight through. So I would do something like this. Just make sure that's good. And then with my double tonguing, ta-ka-ta-ka-ta-ka-ta-ka-ta. And then I guess I could do those two together once I have them individually under control. This next part is very difficult too. So the hardest part in there are those G sharps that you tongue because you can't use the alternate. I mean, I guess you could. For me, I just opted not to because it's going too fast. And then that makes, if you're not doing the alternate fingering, the note is gonna drop. You just have to, if the note is not there, you have to like forge ahead and not worry about it. But what I do to try to make sure it speaks is think about my embouchure being very small, keeping the air very fast, and just supporting with my bottom lip right on those little G sharps, even though they go by so fast. Just make sure, do you? I kind of feel like I'm actually giving a little faster air right on those little G sharps. And of course, like on the eighth note, eighth rest after, at the end of this, no breath on that middle eighth rest either. So just keep everything very still. All the way through this. I would say if doing the little trills messes you up, just take them out. I mean, when I played it with the orchestra, it felt like, I think the E flat clarinet's playing, like all 5 flutes, all 5 clarinets, like just everybody is playing. I don't think it's gonna matter. Just to say, if like that is causing disruption before the ABC, just take it out and so that you're stable. Oh yeah, so let me finish my process talking about like practicing one measure at a time. This next phrase, what I would often do here is do A, B, C, B, A, stop on the A, so that I can, of course, go up, but that I can also come back down. Because again, like I said, for me, I was finding that I could go up to the C, but then my B, A was not speaking, or it was like splitting a little, and you have to be able to come back down as well as go up the mountain. Having pinky on for the A, B, C, B, A, and back down for A, so that you're like coming back to, I don't know, like you're reconnecting with the diving board or some kind of analogy like that. You're not just like up in the air and flipping around. Another thing I would do, now that I think about it, is I did 534 and 535, stopping on the A, so stopping halfway through 535. So everything is stabilized around the A. Sorry, somebody's doing yard work right outside, so hopefully I can scream right over that noise. Also making sure my fingers feel very close to the keys and it's not hard, and my piccolo itself is not moving around. So I did that a bunch of times too. Actually, I think it goes faster than what I was just playing it. It goes at about, half note is 120. Let me just see here. Yeah, and you know what? I never ever practiced it that fast. I just practiced it probably around 112, 115. I mean, to go full speed when you're in the rehearsal or in the concert, that adrenaline of like, oh my God, that pushed me through to do it at tempo. So I never practiced it at 120. And I feel like if I did, it would get, I don't know, I feel like that would backfire for me, but whatever works for you. Okay, I think enough about that line. That's one of my favorite parts in the whole symphony to play. Loved screaming on the high C. Okay, and then what else? Let's see, at 43, just briefly, the way it's notated is you're coming measure before 1, 2, but again, it's going so fast, so let's see, yeah, so 1, 2, you really can't do the grace note versus rhythmic triplets, so it's just in other words. Let's see what's on the last page. At 641, this is in 1. The orchestra is going insane, so it's where it says trill, just one trill. I mean, it's barely playable like that. Okay, so I think that's it. Hopefully some of the stuff I went over on how I practiced it and how I approached some of those hard parts was helpful. I do have separate videos on the first and second movements of this symphony if you're looking for those. And either later today or maybe tomorrow, when I have more time, I will do a video on that last movement, which is a beautiful movement to play a great piccolo part. So anyway, thanks for watching this video. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Have fun in the high register for the symphony, and happy practicing.